Our next panelist is Alfreda Robinson-Dawkins. She is the founder and executive director of the National Women's Prison Project, NWPP. Ms. Robinson-Dawkins served 9.5 years in federal prison and established NWPP in 2003 after seeing firsthand the unmet needs in the community of women who have experienced criminal justice system. Prior to her incarcerations, Ms. Robinson-Dawkins was an educator in Baltimore City, having taught for 7 years with Baltimore City School Systems, 3 years with the Montrose Training School. She holds a BS in Sociology and an MA in Special Education and in Counseling. So, Frida, you have first-hand experience in what it's like to be a returning citizen and the role that churches can have in providing healing. Would you be willing to share a little of your story?
Of my story, that's easy. I was a member of a local church here in Baltimore. It was a rather large church, actually. And when I was hit with my indictment, I was certainly in a state of shock. My son sold drugs in this town, and I was called a conspirator for making a phone call after he was arrested to try and retrieve money that the young man owed my son to pay his bail. I did not know making that phone call made me a conspirator in a larger drug conspiracy. I did not know that any act to continue was called a conspiracy. And I did not think that after having an upright record in the community and no drug involvement or nothing, that I could actually go to a court of law and be found guilty. I was surprised. To fold a bamboozled, all of those words would certainly fit. Unfortunately, my son, who was part of a conspiracy, received a 45-year federal sentence, and he was my only child, and still is. And I, in turn, received 10 years. With all of the faith that I had in me, because I did used to do prison ministry and all of that with my church, I still was not prepared for the reality that I had to face. I had to learn how to survive in an environment that I knew very little about. And all of my education had not prepared me to learn how to survive in that kind of situation. So I had to rely on my faith in God to give me strength to be able to get through every day I woke up to that reality. And I learned to draw strength upon the experience. And I learned that I'm no different than anyone else. That even though I was in federal prison with women from every country, every background, we were all the same. We were united by the common denominator that we were inmates. And we were all trying to just be treated with a level of humanity and dignity while we did our time. I learned to reach out to my community, my faith community. I wrote letters to my pastor, I wrote letters to people who were in my congregation. I received Bible studies and calendars and all kinds of support from my community who believed in me in spite of. They weren't trying to judge me. They weren't trying to figure out, is she really guilty? Some did, but most didn't. And I came home to the same kind of support, people who believed in me. 9 years, 8 months later, I did become an advocate while I was serving that federal sentence. I learned how to help others to write motions to try to get back in the court. I helped other people through Bible studies. My church was so great. They actually sent me study Bibles and all kinds of books so that I could actually lead and teach Bible studies even while there. I became part of Kairos, a larger community that brings the love of Jesus Christ into the prison cells. And they have a 4-day weekend, and I was absolutely ecstatic when we brought Kairos to Maryland. And now, even though I received it on the inside, now I can participate and facilitate other people So the whole experience for me shaped who I am today. And I would like to think that we don't have to go through really life-defying circumstances to come to realize we are all the same, that we are all God's children, that God has given us all a purpose and a plan for our lives, that we try to work out our soul salvation even while we are living life. I would not say that you have to be afflicted with poverty to understand it. You don't have to go on the streets and live as a homeless person to really understand what a person goes through. I would not wish incarceration on anyone, but I would ask people to become educated and not become so comfortable in the situation that they're in that they can't imagine, they can't empathize, they can't understand what it feels like to be disadvantaged. Because someone in the back of the room said it, but by the grace of God, there go I. And until we understand that favor is not fair, His grace and mercy is extended in the way that God wants to extend it. It's what we do with our situations that He's given us to live with. So I would just say, learn about it, become an advocate. I did not ask for the situation of which I am now an advocate. I learned how to advocate trying to get cranberry juice on the commissary for women. I learned how to speak up on behalf of other women while I was there. And that alone has allowed me to continue on, actually being named Baltimore's Best Advocate for Women, and just being able to go across the United States and share the kinds of issues that people do face being incarcerated. But I'm very interested in the intersection of including the faith community in the work that has to be done, because we cannot continue to rely on the government to show us what we need to do. We need to understand what needs to be done, and we need to get out, and we don't need to look for a whole big caravan to do the work. It starts with each one of us being able to take a